just to talk with you all and welcome you back for the 3rd anniversary of Nuremberg Actions and the absolutely momentous changes we made together and in each other's lives. Okay, let's get going. Francisco, would you like to join us and begin with your song?
Ready to tune up, everybody. Oh, nice. Was the 1st of September, first day of the fast, to stop the deadly weapons for Central America. 3 valiant peaks, bringing home the message of truth, hope, and love. Nicaragua, Guatemala, and El Salvador, y Mexico. People want the freedom, not this filthy war. Listen to the laughter, listen to their pain, and they stop the death train. Welcome everybody. It was the 1st of September, day I'll never forget. We were seeing Jesus, clothes ripped off his body. He was taken away, lost both of his legs to that Navy train. Like the children of Nicaragua and the children of El Salvador, who given him so much life so that he can be in the midst of the torture, in the midst of the pain. We tried to come together to support Brian as he lay. David was arrested, Duncan laid injured on the ground, trying to sing along with our tear-filled song. And we sang that day, overcome, we shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. And the word to the man who, following orders, tried to kill our friends. You are not the enemy. Don't be a puppet and a pawn. Regain your dignity and come and stop the bomb. Oh, because in Nicaragua, people want the freedom, not this filthy war. Freedom to have more than tortillas, freedom to live our own lives. So like Brian and Duncan and Dave, come help us stop the lies, oh, and stop the death train. Come on, stop the death train. Stop, stop, stop the death train. La 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 la. Brian spoke for thousands who've lost legs in life. Blood stained on the tracks that day, and in Central America. But the blue is the seed of liberty, and I really do believe of that seed we are the fruit. So as Duncan sang with us, and as Holly helped Brian came to realize, oh yes, that we had just begun. And we sang that day, we have just begun. We have just begun today. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe I'll overcome someday.
Francisco, as wonderful as always. Thank you for opening our circle. Now we're going to welcome Holly Rowan in, and then I'll name 5 people to give their shares. Each share will, after Holly will be 2 to 3 minutes. So please be reflecting on a moment on the tracks, a special memory you'd like to share, a reflection, or something that has happened to you in your lives since we were together 33 years ago. Holly, welcome to the table.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for that. Francisco, so beautiful to sing that with you here in my own little crone cave. I am just overcome right now with emotion, seeing every single one of your faces. And I just jumped for joy, Brian, when I saw you jump in here with us too, and that you're here. I want you all to know that Brian and I spoke for a long time yesterday, and hearing what every single one of us have been doing for the last 33 years. And probably, like myself, you've been doing peace. You've been waging peace in the ways you can. And those of us that were on the tracks on September 1st, and those of you and some of us that remained on the tracks ongoing for so many years, I just thank you deeply from the bottom of my heart and to peace through nonviolent direct action. So really what happened on the tracks was foundational for all of us. And some of you were with Brian and me 10 days before he lost his legs. We spoke vows to each other in a most unusual partnering wedding ceremony. And I thought it would be very appropriate for me to read you our vows, because these are vows really that all of us took as a way or another on the track. Brian will agree with me. We are still connected at the heart in the very, very deepest place. And these vows are still being honored, believe it or not. So very briefly, I'm going to speak these, and then I want to listen to all of you. We commit to a path of ever seeking the truth as citizens of the planet Earth, equally with all other humans, just to be separate from one another due to work, travel, jail, injury, or even physical death, or other women. I just added that. We resolve to resist vigorously and publicly policies and lifestyles that contribute to the death, maiming, and destruction of dignity of other people. We resolve to non-cooperate with the institutions and the policies of our. We make this commitment because we love and we affirm life for all people as equals. We are not more valuable than people of other nations, ethnic groups, races, political or religious persuasions. We share the anguish of the world that comes from the violence and the greed of the first world. So we shall vigorously and with the help of the great extricate ourselves from colonization that robs us of our humanity and robs others of their physical lives. We seek to live and work with others with equality, and we equally desire to build a new sense of community that enables us to be empowered together to be part of the nonviolent revolution that we also desperately need in the United States. I'd like to leave you with the words of Martin Luther King from his address, Declaration of Independence from the war in Vietnam. I'm not going to read Martin Luther King's words. You all know them. And I don't know how to sum up what I've been doing in 33 years, but its foundation is in what happened on the tracks. I've been shot at, arrested, maimed, myself, and waging peace. And I'm looking forward to hear from all of you. And I love each one of you. Just seeing you again just opens my heart. So now we'll open the floor to the rest of you. Thank you for this opportunity to share our cause again.
Much love, Holly, and thank you so much for setting the tone for our sharing. I'm going to invite the first 5 people, and we don't have very many hands raised, so I'll call on, ask some of those of you who are on phones who can't raise your hand to come forward. So Dorothy Granada, we are thrilled that you're with us from Nicaragua, and I know you only have a short period of time, or you may have a short period of time, so we're going to ask you to share first, followed by Kevin Fagan, followed by Jean Bakewell. Robbie Leibowitz will be after her and after Jean. And then whoever has the phone number of 25320 who doesn't have a name up on the screen, will ask you to be the 5th person following Robbie. And Kevin Fagan, would you like to join us for a couple of minutes?
Hi there. I get a kick out of seeing everyone's faces on it. Holly, Brian, David, and Jan. Long time. I'm into past my 40th year as a reporter now, and I've a lot of my career was at the time that this happened was spent on crime and disasters and whatnot. I just wanted to say that spending time with all of you for, Jesus, it must have been a couple of years over the, initially. And then, I did stories on Brian and David in the years after that. It inspired me, major focus of my journalism. And I've specialized in homelessness and among other things, but that's what I'm probably best known nationally for now. It has a lot to do with you guys. Spending time with you all and seeing the dedication that you had in your hearts and in your actions really inspired me as a human being and a journalist. I was at the Oakland Tribune back then, and the Chronicle. I've done a lot of stories at the Chronicle on several of you folks here. And I see Holly nodding. I'm just really pleased to see all of you. And I'm a little amazed that so much time has gone by. It doesn't feel like we're that old. And we will be older, I think, later. But it's just wanted to say some gratitude to this all here, because you're all pretty terrific people. And I thank you for letting me write about you.
Thank you so much for being with us, Kevin. Jean, would you like to share? And if we could have the screen share be turned off, that would be great. From Terry, could you turn off your screen share, please? Thank you.
Sherry, who's next?
Robbie, welcome to the table.
Thank you so much. It's great. I don't have a computer. I don't have a car. I don't have a cell phone, but I am very glad to be with you all. I feel you and hear you. And very moved by this gathering and very thankful for those of you who put it together. And it's exciting to know that everybody's there that I hung out with for those couple of years off and on at the tracks. And it was a very inspiring those years. I left and I'm back now for 11 years in Santa Cruz. But during those years, I got involved with 5888, who had come out against Reagan Central American policies, and were very involved with getting this action going. And I figured if they thought that Nicaragua looked like Vietnam, they had some reason for saying that. So helping with that and going to the tracks whenever I could. And it was quite an action. It just felt magical in a way. I mean, it just felt right to be there and inspired. Well, there was a white dove living with us at the tracks for quite a while, and a solar oven. I mean, it was more than, it was peace in so many ways, being there. And it inspired a song, Dream for Peace, that I wrote, the concert at 5, if that's still on the schedule, which is on one of my CDs, Singing on a Rainbow. And it inspired a painting that I actually gave to Dorothy Granada when she was visiting from Nicaragua at one point. It was, anyway, nice that all of you are there. And I just continue my work in different ways. There's a veteran hall that we sing in front of the Vets Hall once a week, songs from World War II, and I'm part of that. And we just sang at Ruben Gomez's memorial. I guess a lot of you knew Ruben, or maybe many of you didn't. He didn't come to the tracks much, but he was the chaplain of the 5888 post. And Steve and Laura, we're still involved. We're called the Green Star family, and so we're still continuing with peace in that way, music, and that's basically what a lot of what I've been doing all my life. We know one of the people from the Tin Can Band is in a band that I have called Robbie and Friends. There's 7 of us, and we do uplifting folk music, quite a few gigs every month at senior centers and public events and vigils and whatever, different public concerts and such. And we get to rehearse during the COVID because luckily our house where I live has a large yard, so 7 of us get to rehearse together, and we have one gig, a large enough yard to have outdoor 6 foot apart entertainment. So at least we have one gig a month, but it's so that's kind of what I've been continuing, that, and with the Tin Can Band and other activities that basically a lot of things during this COVID, or with friends at the beach with dance church, and get to just by phone with my Buddhist group, Thich Nhat Hanh Buddhist group, once a week, and just by phone, of course. But anyway, and have a wonderful garden that keeps me sane. Just made some tomato sauce. The vegetables don't seem to mind the COVID or the smoke. So I'm thankful.
So thanks so much.
Okay, great.
And I'm coming down for dinner out of your garden. So can we
Okay.
welcome, thank you so much, Robbie, and we'll look forward to hearing your music later. Can we welcome area code 213-413-5320?
Hi, you're
Great.
talking to. Yeah. I'm a dinosaur when it comes to technology, and I can't see anything on this phone, or nobody's name, nothing. But I'm here.
And we're thrilled.
Thank you.
That's
Oh,
Eleanor.
it's great.
Mhm.
Yeah. Who's that? Sounds familiar.
That's Mark and Sherry.
Oh, hi, Mark. Yeah, besides not being in technology, I'm terrible with names. Waiting to the FBI. Well,
Well,
that's it. So,
Yeah.
I am in downtown LA, and I don't know one day from the other what I've been doing. So we were down here. We had the National Guard down here when the police were having a fit, and so what of my work has been kind of with the Black movement and with my concern, and I've been working with that. So what can I say? I'm in downtown LA. I can't see anybody, but I'm here. Are you there?
We sure are, and we're thrilled you're with us. Thank you so much. I knew it was a challenge for you to sign on. So we'll have 5 more in the queue. The next person will be Mary Jane.
Oh, great.
And
Good. Mary Jane.
So I was at Holly and Brian's wedding, and I ate dinner with Holly and Brian and Gabe with my boyfriend Steve in their apartment in San Rafael the night before Brian was going to protest at the track, and explained how he had sent a letter to the head of the weapons station warning how Brian planned to sit on the tracks to stop the train from sending weapons being sent to Central America. I was at work that day, and when I heard the news that the train actually ran over Brian instead of stopping, I was horrified, and so were others. The next day, thousands of people came to Concord and tore up the tracks. Sometime later, after Brian was released from the flat in the Haight-Ashbury area of San Francisco, near where they lived, and to become their office manager for Brian's new project, the Institute for the Practice of Nonviolence. I leased the apartment, promptly quit my job of 8 years, and moved in the flat, where for a year we sent working teams to help people in Central America. I'm project, including me. Before this project dissolved, Tony Gonzalez, head of the International Indian Treaty Council at that time, and now head of AIM West, took over the lease. It's been a long time, but a few things that stand out in my memory from Nuremberg actions are being arrested at the tracks, along with others handcuffed, taken to jail, and printed and provided up for being released. I remember spending many hours with the other protesters at the tracks and the many, many long Nuremberg action meetings. I remember the person, was his name Peter, who lived at the Peace House, who became very upset at times at what he was overhearing being said at our meetings. And he was a very emotional, buried trash outside the Peace House. I would like to update you on a couple of my friends. One is Ellen Earth. Ellen said, we talked recently, Ellen said that she recalled her horror of picking up Brian's foot. Ellen said she would try to call in, and I'm glad she did, to this meeting. And then there's Sydney Valine, who said that after being hospitalized for months now during the coronavirus due to her breathing issues. Myself, I'm in a place where I'm in a place in Northern California where we don't have very many things to protest here, even though a lot of things are going bad here. but there is I am able to participate somewhat by things about the BLM movement. And I'm currently studying a book, A You in White Supremacy. We do that weekly. Otherwise, I'm sheltering in place due to the pandemic. That's it.
Thank you, Firewalker Woman. So good to have you on. And Marilia, would you? Mark, can you see Marilia Kelly?
Am I unmuted now?
There you go, Marilia. Good to see you.
Join you for real now. Mary Leah Kelly, Executive Director of Tri-Valley Cares, which stands for Communities Against a Radioactive Environment here in the nation. When I participated in the demonstrations at Concord, I want to quickly bring in one of our Tri-Valley Cares members who we shared with Nuremberg Actions, who just recently, very recently passed from cancer, Barry Miller Presente. And I talked today with his wife, Barbara, and she's thrilled that we're getting together. It was very, very nice. I kind of met you all at a demonstration when you were kind enough to invite me to speak. It was one of my very early speaking engagements when Tri-Valley Cares, being represented by Western States Legal Foundation, who I see also on this call, actually sued the US Department of Energy for environmental law violations at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, which, as you all know, is one of your weapons. They are still at it. And so we in Tri-Valley Cares are still at it. I always called our litigation speaking truth to power in a language that power understands. We were successful, and we have sued them often since. We also, as you know, do demonstrations. We have a newsletter. We have an electronic news monitor. Livermore Lab, and more broadly, we continue to monitor US nuclear weapons and work for global nuclear disarmament and that intersection of peace, justice, and the environment. Anyone who would like to get electronic newsletters or the paper newsletter can contact us through the web or through me, and be happy to do that. I've seen you at Concord, I've seen you at Livermore, I've seen you at the Nevada test site. Thank you all for being such long-standing, wonderful, and faithful warriors for peace, justice, and for a healthy future and environment for all.
Thank you, Marilia. And before we welcome Chuck Goodmacher, now called Charles, I wanted to, together over the last 4 months, we've discovered that about 48 or 49 of our community have passed. And so when you get to the new website, which we'll be talking about in a little bit, there'll be a Presente list, naming and giving the names of those that we've discovered that are no longer with us. So if you have some of those, please do send it into the Nuremberg Actions at gmail.com link you got today, and we'll mention that again, but we would like to remember and record those of our group that have passed. We welcome Chuck.
Hi, it's wow, it's fantastic to be on this and see so many old friends and people that are just obviously live your whole lives dedicated to helping others and making the world better. You know, you all. And I just want to just a little bit about where I'm at now, and then circle back to Nuremberg. So I had kids late in life, so I now have a 13-year-old and 17-year-old, 2 daughters that are just wonderful human beings, and married to my wife Jill, and live here in New Mexico. So what you see behind me is a view from about a block or two. But okay, enough about me. Wanted to share, how do you put it? Nuremberg Actions t-shirt, which is not coming in very well, but says on the bottom, the quote from Brian, "We are not worth more, they are not worth less." And that, you know, from the beginning when I heard Brian say that, really to the core of who we are as people. And I'm going to circle back to what I'm doing now that's kind of inspired by that. But I have to say, it's a strange coincidence, nice coincidence, that lately I have been going through old stuff I have in boxes to see what I can clear out. I had to start digitizing a lot of some of these old papers, and just sent yesterday and today probably 20 or 30 separate emails with different scans of different old newspaper articles and such. One of these, oh gosh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Not very good at this, but Contra Costa Times, an editorial or op-ed that I wrote about why protesters are demonstrating at the tracks now in the midst of writing an op-ed along those same lines about Black Lives Matter and everything else going on. It is the same story, isn't it? You know, we're not worth more, they're not worth less. And protesting itself has to be defended. I don't know. Also, by the way, I also had the recording of the press conference that Brian and Holly did, and I bought a little thing to digitize that, so I'm going to send that audio file to the website too. Of course, I'm also remembering Holly and Brian and I being able to go to Korea. I forget what year it was now, but that was quite a trip to North Korea at the time. You know, I've spent most of my years I worked as a union organizer for National Education Association, educators. And they're, again, the same thing about we're not worth more, they're not worth less when you're talking about, you know, employees, workers. But also more recently, been working on equity issues in education and transforming education so that, you know, the core principles, Supreme Court ruling in New Mexico around a lawsuit around it, established the critical principle that's related to we're not worth more, they're not worth less around equity in education, that it is essentially saying it's right and just, to borrow a phrase from the Catholics, to provide equal opportunity, more help for some who need it, to get them on a level playing field so that everyone has an equal opportunity to succeed. And I think, you know, allowing the people of Nicaragua to have the same opportunities that we would want for ourselves. I don't know. I've lived most of my life organizing one way or another since those old days when I worked at the Peace Center and worked with you all. And I'm just so grateful for the experiences I've had with you all and today's as well.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. And
hey, Sherry, yes. I need to cut in because I have Sydney on the line and she can't stay long. Sydney, will you say hello to everybody?
Hello to everybody. That's everybody. That's everybody.
Sydney, we wish you could see the 1,000 smiles we're sending you.
Good, I can see them. I know what they look like up there.
Well, we love you, Sydney. We're glad to have you join us, even for just this minute. Her arm is hurting because she's holding this phone up to her ear.
That's right. It's almost pulling up my ear right now.
Yeah. So you can say hello to Holly and to Brian and to David, to all the rest of us.
Absolutely, yes. Brian, David, Holly, I don't know who all you named, but everybody you named, I'll say hello to. And everybody else that you didn't name, I'll say hello to.
When I got Sydney on the phone at the hospital, I asked her how she was, and she said, "I'm doing great, you're on the phone." So that spirit that she brought to the tracks continues. Yes.
That's right.
All right, thank you, Sydney.
I'm going to hand the phone back to somebody now because my arm is getting tired.
Thank you. Okay, take good care. We'd like to welcome Peace House. It's listed as Peace House, but while you find it, can you unmute Bob LaSalle?
He's already unmuted.
Fine. Great, Bob. Welcome to the table.
Hello, everybody. I just want to send love and humble thanks for your lives, for your lives and all the goodness. Some will remember that Francisco and I in those days were living at the Catholic Worker. I'm still there all these years. And during those days, I crossed a migrant over the border. And I thought my future wife and I did it. And we thought we were pretty cool about doing that. And we got over the border and we got home. And the migrant, who's a dear friend of ours, and we witnessed her wedding, and their kids are part of our family, and we're still very close. She said to us, "You know, Bob, I'm so close." Like, well, wait a minute, we did it. And then she, no, you just cooperated. And that's what I want to say to us and to each of you. Thank you for cooperating with the higher power, the universe, the earth, whatever it is, in doing this work. And it's carried me through life, honestly. And I've stayed in that stream. Holly said, she was remembering your vows, and I was there too. Today was, I'm willing to confront death. That jumped out to me. But I will just say, and this is just my personal take, I think we all learned how precious life is. Brian, that you survived. We were so grateful that you survived. And I always felt, and you can just put this on me, Brian, I always felt you were more whole after than you were before. You and I spent a lot of months together getting ready for this action, and you always seemed over than before. And I think all of us appreciated your life, and I think we all learned to appreciate our lives. And that's the main thing I want to say. Shortly after the attack, Sherry and I were asked to lead a delegation of vets to El Salvador, and Sherry and I told some stories to each other the other day, and there were many stories. Secret radios being snuck into the country past agents and all kinds of stuff that many of you will remember. About a year and a half later, the Jesuits were murdered in El Salvador, and they chose me to tell their story. And I had the privilege of going inside that story and being the one that was chosen to tell it in English, at least. And I think the reason why that door opened to me was in part because of Brian's courage and all of your courage, because they said, oh, he's a part of that. He's okay. We trust. And I've never been the star of any of these stories, and I really don't want to be or need to be. But the privilege of being there with you has just changed my life. And my children have had that privilege too. And I just can't tell you how grateful I am and how humbled I am. And I just have tried to let the current carry me in this road of solidarity and love. So that's all I want to say. Thank you. Bless you. It's great to be with you.
Dan Ellsberg, would you like to come forward and join us and share some thoughts with us today?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, Dan, thanks so much for being here.
Well, it's wonderful to have a feeling here when we're socially isolated, be reunited for Patricia and I. People who share these commitments and these actions are, I feel, as very much as close as family and always have. I'll never forget, with Patricia and I sat on the tracks in the morning, the day after we'd heard this astonishing news that Brian had sacrificed his legs, actually, to a principle, which I'll come back to in a moment. I remember we sat on those tracks and saw them been removed or rained out or scrubbed out or anything. I remember Patricia saying, sacrifice makes sacred. And that isn't all entirely a good memory for humans. Human sacrifice, animal sacrifice, part of sacredness, no doubt. But there was no question in my mind that those tracks with that blood on it represented something very, very powerful. The days before that incident, Brian and she had made vows together that already expressed this principle that so startled me, really, in its unfamiliarity, that I'd heard from Brian later in his letter to the base, that other people are as valuable, as she put it, I think, in that vow, as valuable as ourselves. And after all, isn't our Declaration of Independence the old man, as it was then, not women, but all men are created equal. Well, what we've learned, of course, above all, I would say in the last several years since Charlottesville, and what's been going on in this country, is that the extreme hypocrisy of that statement written, drafted by a slaveholder, that it is simply absurd, actually believed that all humans were created equal as the owner of many slaves. And of course, that was true of 11 of our first 15 presidents. So we've all learned, I'll just speak for myself, I've learned more in the last 3 years than I had in previous 85, that how deep racism is in every aspect of our society, in this society. Denial has been going on all that time. Well, when I read Brian's statement, which was, as somebody else just repeated here, the people of Central America, where these arms are being sent, their lives are not less valuable than our own. Ours are not more valuable. And amazingly, of course, that statement is made by a man who actually not only risked in his body that day, but actually astonishingly suffered the costs of that risk, and has lived his life ever since in recognition of that same value. In other words, never in a sense of regret or injustice that he should risk his body for the lives of others, but actually lived that to the hilt, absolutely to the hilt. And as I say, I, like Brian, learned an example of the how far that differed from our actual actions in the world in Vietnam. His description of his seeing people we had bombed, a pound in a village in Vietnam, and his reaction to that was like actually that of Kurt Vonnegut, who flew into the town of Dresden and saw what British and Americans had done to that town in creating a firestorm there, a deliberate incineration of tens of thousands of civilians. And I once had the occasion to ask Vonnegut, the one time I met him, something about how he describes that in Slaughterhouse 5. And he reminded me that he had said in the book that when he was of the Germans in Dresden, when that happened, he and his close friend, Bernard something, were passing the Statue of Liberty as they came back, and he said to his friend Bernard, "Well, what did you learn from all that?" And his friend said, "Never to trust anything our government said again." And he was referring to the belief that he held on to then, as most Americans, that none had the right of life, even in war, even no matter on which side, that indiscriminate bombing of non-combatants was wrong, was a sin, and we didn't do it. And if it happened, it was collateral damage. That was a lie. And of course, our foreign policy has been based, and this is what I've been fighting for half a century, on the notion that we have the right to prepare on Earth, man, woman, and child. Now that we know of nuclear winter for the last 5 years, a few years before the Nuremberg action, and ever since then, the nuclear winter means that our own war plans, on which I worked earlier, in a capacity, when I was serving the empire, just as Brian was, and came to realize in Vietnam that that was not only threatening hundreds of millions of people, it's everyone. In short, now that one is almost like saying we are all equal. But prior, equal it's equal potential victims of U.S. action. And the fact that this mad and insane policy can persist is a challenge, let's say, to the nature of our country, our people, ourselves, our civilization, our society's time. As Gandhi said right after Hiroshima, he said, "What this has done to the soul of the destroyers is yet too early to see." Well, it's not too early to see now, these years later. And no one has done more than Brian in his writings and in his life to reveal what the pursuit of empire and the acceptance of empire by the public, not only our leaders, means in terms of our added negation of Brian's principle there, which Holly had joined in a vow just earlier, that these lives matter, that they matter. We're now hearing that Black lives matter, and some people say, well, white lives matter too. Not in our history, not in Justice Tawney's position in the Dred Scott case that, as he put it, Negroes of the African race have no rights, that the white man is bound. The way we've acted, as Brian has shown, I think is better than almost anybody I can imagine. And as he discovered in his life and as I discovered. So his words have inspired me all that time, and his life has inspired me. And all of you who support him, as I say, our family whose lives matter to me and whose actions matter to me, and I thank you all.
Thanks for sharing in this moment. Next, we welcome Daniel Zwickel.
Hello, namaste. When I was cantor at St. Joseph the Worker, Bill O'Donnell's church, Father Bill's church, I would always begin the Mass with Namaste, the divine in me, grace the divine within each and every one of you. My parents, as many of you know, some of you know, met on a civil rights march in 1943. Whatcom James Farmer Jr., among others, to protest Jim Crow from New York, Washington, D.C. At the age of 4, Banner was Committee for Nonviolent Action West, from San Diego to Vallejo, to call for nuclear disarmament, and here I am living in Vallejo. Below these many years later. I remember some bitterly cold nights sitting around the table at the tracks. I remember, I believe it was the first anniversary. I had been responsible for the generator to run the sound system, ran out of gas. Their van, we plugged into the van and were able to continue. I remember every Thursday, my father, and up until several months before he passed at the age of 96, every Thursday he would take the bus, put on his kimono and get his drum. Where's his drum? His drum. And beat it, chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo while blocking the munitions train and trucks. The annual Good Friday witness and interfaith worship service at Lawrence Livermore Lab with music and sound system, and lately at the Crosses of Lafayette. That's it for 16 years. A number of you know I was cantor at Father Bill's church, composed a Mass, recorded it. I see I cannot post on chat, so I will send the links that I was going to post to Nuremberg Actions, the website there, so that you can access my Mass. I set up a special page on the peace tree. My father planted an olive tree next to the chapel on the base. When it was to be decommissioned, I managed to transplant it with Mike Kerr and Phyllis and Wes Nicholson, transplanted it onto the campus of my church. Part of my beloved community, Mount Diablo Unitarian Universalist Church in Walnut Creek. It was dedicated by Commander Owens as a tree of peace. Just wonderful to be part of this wonderful gathering. Again, namaste.
Thank you, Daniel, and presente to your parents who are a beloved part of our community. Wind, we welcome you to the table.
Hello, okay, hi. Most of you probably remember me as Wendy. Wind is a name that kind of descended upon me over years. But I just want to share before I'll tell a little bit about what's happened to me in 33 years. But before I do that, I just want to share some memories of the track. Greg Geddes is for me one of the most, important memory for me. And I was hoping he'd be here. Does anybody know if?
Yes,
anyway,
he's
we can
here.
Go to that later. Mm-hmm. Oh, good. And I also remember foot traffic, it's just car traffic. And so we would be at the stop sign and we would have to run over to the driver's side door for them to roll down their windows and give them. Anyway, I think that it made me the best leafleter in the whole wide world, because every time I leaflet, at easy places and with lots of foot traffic, I do such a good job and people are like, wow, where did you learn how to leaflet? It's like Concord Naval Weapons Station. And I just also want to mention the trailer that Bob LaSalle and Barbara Graves Aiden on Sandy Hillard's property did. And the Franciscan Affinity Group, which I was part of, owned the trailer, and it was like a yoke around our neck for many years after. Anyway, but it is just so wonderful to see familiar faces, some not. I think that we all kind of had our parts, but I wasn't there on the morning that Brian was attacked. Anyway, like most of you, I guess the most recent is, well, the most recent is City College of San Francisco. The accreditation crisis that happened, I don't know if people are familiar with it, but about 8 years ago it started, and it was not about accreditation. It was a political attack on a public college, and it's part of the whole, okay, I know I sound like a conspiracy theorist, but it's, you know, this whole right-wing agenda of downsizing public education, privatizing public assets. Of course, I lost because I lose most of the political battles I engage in, but of course I gain the hope and the friendships of people like you. Before City College, I was spending my summers in Palestine, and of course that's a really heavy situation. But I can't go back because, of course, eventually I got denied entry at the border, but I have a friend that I call every night. I was kicked out in 2012, so 10 years. Keep our fingers crossed. And I guess that's it for me.
Inshallah, Wind, I might go with you. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Anna Graves, welcome to the table.
I'm very honored to be here amongst you all. And this experience of all those years of the 80s, and whether it was the Livermore Action Group or later on I was on the staff of the Pledge of Resistance. I remember going out to the track, and I always carried my person who had the little kid on my back who would look over my shoulder, and people would just be very distracted trying to talk because this little kid's face was right there. That little kid is 37. They are the parent of 2 beautiful little kids that unfortunately Jim and I can only visit now via Zoom. But anyway, I think I've kept the idealism of those times, the suffering of those times with me. And we've gone on and on to so many things that we've worked on. I'm sure you all have. It feels that these days as if it's the worst. I don't know, it keeps getting worse in a way. But I know you're all there, and we're working with this country once again. Sorry I get so emotional talking about it. I'm really sorry. I don't know if I have a lot to say. I've been working on electoral things. I'm with Indivisible Berkeley. I've done a lot of electoral. I'm a canvasser. I've been a canvasser for years now, trying to change, trying to help with the democracy in the country. I has been with you all, you and the others subsequent years that have done work with. You make life real. You give my life meaning. And I love you all. And just as a final thing, I could say, I'm sure many of you remember a friend of mine, Maylee Scott. And she was becoming a Zen priest. And I said, Maylee, with me sometime. And she came, and it was a wonderful experience for her. And I think so many of you. She died, I can't remember exactly, 15, 20 years ago, long time ago, from cancer. I just wanted to say presente to Maylee, was such a dear long-term friend. And I know she was so helpful to so many people out on the track. So I think that's all.
Thank you, Anna. And she invite others who have lost friends in the beloved community of Nuremberg to please send in those names to, if they're not already on the list, to our Nuremberg Actions email. Welcome, Jennifer.
Every one of you just triggers so many memories that experiencing them all simultaneously is really amazing. I want to begin what I have to say just by honoring those who made this possible and brought us together today. And you've probably figured that out by now, but I just want to speak it out loud. Sherry has absolutely tirelessly tracked us all down and followed up leads, and the Heart Shows helped a great deal as well. And Mark Copeland has really dug into the media archives and made that piece of it work out. And he mastered some odd challenges of Zoom that we encountered. And anybody that needed training, he trained them personally to be able to join us. So making that circle empowered that way is just awesome, and I'm very grateful. And Michael Kerr is the one who's going to keep us together in the future, because he's created this incredible website that many of us have dreamed about for 30 years, as well as being archival. So all of us can go there, share our stories, share images, make comments on what's already there. We're all getting a little old. Some of us don't remember names very well, so you can go and add them in the comments section. It's pretty great. Also, looking back on this experience, just want to acknowledge the 2,000 arrests that I documented there at the tracks. 2,000. And I have to say that Abe Zwickel, thank you very much. About the website, I just always personally felt there's been a lot of attempts to try to write the definitive Nuremberg Actions book, and none of them ever really gelled. And I think, and I've said for years, that that's because this story and this cast of characters is just too big for one person to try to put it all together. And so now we speak for ourselves and put them on that website and send them to the email. And thank you, Michael, for making that possible. It's very exciting to me personally. As far as where I've been, the last I saw a lot of you was at the 25th anniversary at the tracks. And since then, I spent 7 years back in Vermont doing end of care life for 3 of my favorite relatives. And I moved 16. And a year ago, a little more than that now, I found my long-term dream, an affordable old dirt house. I'm living in so nobody has a clue when it was built. It's just a 6-room adobe home on an acre of irrigated land. And so I'm learning how to plaster and once again, putting up solar panels and putting in a garden. And I'm planning to stick around. I've moved once a decade, and I didn't really share a lot in the past about one aspect of what my motives were for doing the work I did. And one of them is that my name father, John Olarana, gave me the job as a pretty young child to devote my energy to trying to interface between Indigenous people and Met. He was an Inupiat elder in northern Alaska in an island off the coast of Nome. And that is what took me initially to Nicaragua in January of 1987, when they were writing their constitution. And to be part of that, to experience that, to see the Native people were included in that process was a really incredible experience. And being lindered there, that's what then caused me to want to connect with Holly and Brian when they came back. I didn't know many people who shared that experience. By then, Ben had been killed, and I needed to speak to people who shared that in my heart. So that's what took me to meet you guys when you were speaking. That's what took me out to the tracks in June, and that's what brought me back on September 2nd. And it's also what Bakery Bus, when it went out to the Nevada test site a year or two later. And I had by that time seen a nuclear missile in the waterfront area being unloaded from a flatbed truck. And I had never really given nuclear issues a great deal of thought, but that really, really struck me to see that for myself. And so jumped on the bus. Sure, we'll go out here and bake 50 loaves of bread a day. I can help with that. And stayed for 20 years, Tony and other Native groups, focusing mainly on the intersection of their treaty rights and nuclear colonialism around the world. And that's a lot of what I did. I still, from Abiquiu, New Mexico, I still offer nonprofit support to a few different groups, some of which are still anti-nuclear around the country. And also for the Chiricahua Apache Nation, which is in the southwest corner. And on top of that, I would just words from Steve Brooks and Laura Hagen, because they weren't able to join us today. They're in housing in Hollister. Their home in Santa Cruz, for those of you who know them, their home in Davenport is still standing, but it's not livable at this time due to the amount of smoke there from the fires. And also because of all that ash in the air, they weren't able to. So they asked me to share greetings with all you guys, and particularly with Holly and Brian, and just wish everybody well and say they really wish that they could be here. I just thank you for being part of my day And I really wish you all good health and strength through peace and Social Security if you need it in the coming times.
Thank you, Jennifer. And as we're welcoming Mark to the table, I want to maybe have us all give a moment of reflection to all those who are experience suffering and devastation in these horrible fires that are plaguing up and down California. We've had many people that have, not many, but we've had at least a half a dozen people that could not be on the call today because they had no communications, or they've lost their homes, or they're having to shelter elsewhere. So we could just, as we welcome Mark Copeland to the table, to please